Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy EFL Show, your home for all things fantasy football in the EFL, sponsored and produced by That Millwall Podcast, a show made by the fans for the fans. Joining me for the second week in a row now, we've been back together, is my co-host, Mr. Ben Green. Ben, how are you, mate?
Hello, mate. What's going on? 2 weeks in a row. But yes, I'm all good. Thank you very much, mate. Looking forward to having a chat to Nathan and listening about all things Wrexham. How are you, Jay?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. I had a better fantasy week this week, so
You're happy.
I'm a little bit happier, yeah. And also, as you can see, as Ben just alluded to, we are joined by another guest in our guest segment that we do with our podcast. We are joined by Nathan of Rob Ryan Red, Wrexham AFC podcast, and he's going to be giving us a lowdown on his game week 5, game week 6 teams, and obviously the Q&A all about Wrexham. Nathan, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am absolutely thrilled, gents. You couldn't have invited me on for a better week after my fantasy. So if you'd have asked me the week before, I'd have probably been down a hole somewhere crying. But this week, great. I couldn't wait to get on, lads.
And a good result last night, mate.
Exactly. Well, we're just a winning machine, mate. I'm used to it now. I don't know about you boys, but we just win all the time. So it's great.
Yeah, it must get boring, though, winning.
Nah, not yet. Not yet for me. We've had 15 years in the National League. I'm all right, actually. I quite like it still.
Yeah, not yet. No, I don't think anybody can get bored of winning. So with that, gents, let's talk about some wins, talk about some losses. Let's dive straight into what was game week 5. And Ben, I think we'll start with your team, mate, if you're ready.
Absolutely, mate.
You picked up 61 points this week. Find yourself in 18th. You had a good result. You had, obviously, Jones didn't play. Talk to us about that. Did you see that? Did you make a change?
Yes, obviously, we went through it on the show, right? And I kept going in, out with players. I thought Jones was going to start. I probably didn't do my research into Joey Jones before I put him in, but obviously he didn't. I was tossing up between him and McGoldrick. Obviously, McGoldrick's had a really good game week. Ooh. Jones didn't play. That's about the third or fourth time already this year that I've done that, isn't it? If we think back to the Coventry when I tossed up between Hadji Wright and Ellis Sims. But mate, overall 61 points with what was their 13 fixtures last week. I was pretty happy. My two teams I picked were Donny and Nathan will be happy in Wrexham. I put Jack Marriott in as well. Look, overall, as I say, the only thing I probably could have done better on was my captain. I stuck with Luke Molyneux and probably had we did have one of his quieter weeks. Mate, apart from that, I think, as I say, 61 points with 13 games and one player not playing. Can't be sniffed at.
No, definitely not. And you mentioned Molyneux there. I mean, a lot of people, he's one of the highest scorers, if not the highest scorer in Fantasy EFL this season so far. So captaining him is never going to go down with a whimper. But Demetriou, again, just keeps putting up points, mate. I mean, Nathan, your thoughts on that team, mate? What do you like? What don't you like?
I don't like the fact that Ben wasn't on the ball because you've got until kickoff, you've got until 3 p.m. to make the change. I had Jody Jones as my captain, but I'm on the ball, Ben. You've got to be. What are you doing between 2 and 3? You've got to be changing. I put David McGoldrick in. Now I look like a genius. Come on the ball, Ben. Come on, you're the Fantasy EFL show. You got to do a lot better than that, I'm afraid. But Demetriou was, great pick, and Molyneux's one of them where look, it's worked as a captaincy option most weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah. And
it's always the case of if I put him in next week or the week after, and I captain him, he'll do nothing, and then I take him out, and the week later he bags 30 points, and that's fantasy football, isn't it?
Yeah, and normally Ben does a lot better job than I do, and we sit here and we are a Fantasy EFL show. We don't claim to be experts. Fantasy football is a game of chance, and it never. If it pans out, you look like a genius, you feel like a genius, but the next week it never does. So Nathan, with that, then we'll take a look at your team, then, mate, because that is. I've got to be honest, I'm impressed. It's one of the better scorers that we've seen, and you did captain McGoldrick, and you had Demetriou in there, and you got your two teams come up trumps. Not much went wrong. I'm going to ask you what went wrong, but not much went wrong. But can you find something?
No, the only thing that was annoying, and I shouldn't be too critical because Barrow did end up with was it a right back or a centre back in goal, and he
In
conceded with what
goal.
was which was the last kick of the game. So Theo Vassell, I think, was on for 9 points. He ended up with 3 because they conceded in the 95th minute. So
Yeah.
I was on for nearly 100 points. Now I know you don't be too critical, but if that was the only real downside, I went with Jack Marriott and Ryan Barnett. Elliot Lee probably would have been a better pick in midfield, but I just felt like Ryan Barnett might have got a couple of assists. Luke O'Connell, again, I thought maybe he'd done a little bit more for Barnsley, but 5 points. And then McGoldrick, 9 points each for my teams, 89 points total. I'm struggling to find many faults in that team, lads, I'll be honest.
No, 100%. And you'd captain in McGoldrick as well. I mean,
Wow.
it will come on to McGoldrick. It was that looks like a very good, very, very, very good return for game week 5. Bearing in mind you did have one player that got 3 points, keeper got 4. But that wasn't the best points total in the Fantasy EFL Show League this week. And we'll come on to that in a little bit. But before we do, we're going to take a little look at my team. I've struggled. I'm going to be honest. I've struggled. And I thought that going with the formation that I did, the 2-3-1, I thought I was being really shrewd here, gents, because I look at the midfield and I think if I put my 3 midfielders in there, they get their defensive points, they're tackling, their interceptions, but they can also go and get your goals and assists as well. It hasn't panned out for me. When we bring the league table up, you're not going to see me. I'm still looking up. It's not pretty. I get that. But I had trumps with Wrexham. Brilliant. Wildig come up trunks. Clueworth, again, he's performing at a really high level. Really good defender. Really liking, captained him. I had Jody Jones in my team. And then I saw the news. I put a tweet out, or the podcast put a tweet out saying, get your changes in now.
We even tweeted it and I still didn't look.
Yeah, and I said, get your changes in now. And I put McGoldrick in. And then the football god started talking to me and it rose up from the depths and said, take him out, because Wrexham looked really, really good. So I took him out and I put Marriott in, and I was watching the game because the game was live because we had 13 fixtures. So I watched the Wrexham game and I was looking at his performance and I see the other striker score and I thought, this isn't going to happen for Marriott today, but popped up with a goal. Probably an own goal, but it was on target. Glad they gave it to him. But yeah, I ended up with a good return haul. I think 61 points I ended up with, which has probably been my best haul. So I'm pretty happy with that. But Charlton, again, this is something that is going to let teams down. And Nathan, I'll come to you first, is that you can only pick one team 5 times. I've already picked Charlton a couple of times this season. Both times they've let me down. And I'm going to run out of them top pick options to where I'm going to have to start looking at riskier picks. But your thoughts on that, especially with my formation, it's a lot different to others.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those where if it had have panned out, where if you got a couple of double-digit returns, I mean, while Wildig did quite well. I mean, Super Max Clueworth at the back. I mean, it's a bold captaincy pick, but he's been in fabulous form. It's just one of those where where I was able to get that captaincy on David McGoldrick and you get 28 or whatever it was. You've just got a lot of 5s, 7s, and they just don't really add up that much. I know the Charlton pick is really frustrating. Wasn't necessarily sure on them. I know I did have the Charlton keeper. I mean, I'm like you. I've gone for Wrexham. I've gone for Notts County. I've gone for Stockport, teams like that. But I'm going to have to make some riskier picks. Maybe you'll see that in my game week 6 team. But yeah, my rule, gents, at the minute is just back anyone who's playing Accrington Stanley. So just anyone who plays Accrington Stanley, captain the striker of that team. And it actually served me quite well so far. So if whoever's playing, I don't even know who's playing them this week, but whoever's playing them, back them because I think they're going.
Okay, that was going to be my next question there, Nathan. Is it based on you thinking they're going to struggle for the rest of the year, or
big time? I think they're going to be dropping.
I think they're like second or third bottom. I think they're second or third bottom.
I think they'll be dropping through the trapdoor. So, and in League 2 to do that, you have to be pretty bad. So I am very much backing them, backing anyone who plays them to at least score. Defensively they look an absolute mess. And so yeah, if your 2 teams if you use everybody and you end up with Accrington, I'd be worried for you. So try and spread it out a bit and save yourself ending up with those boys for a while.
Yeah, that's the strategy I'm kind of looking for. I've avoided championship teams a little bit, but that may change in my game week 6 team. But let's have a look before we look at the league table and give people their props that won't be named me. just as a little insight into that. The star performer from last week, and we've already spoke about him, David McGoldrick. I mean, to lose Jatta not play, Jody Jones not play, to have McGoldrick come on and do what he did, I mean, he totaled 28 points this week. He's only 1.9% selected in fantasy teams so far, 14 points without the captaincy, 5 appearances and 4 goals. You know, I mean, you got to be stupid not to be picking him, right? And he was the key performer in game week 5. Ben, your thoughts?
I'll let Nathan take that one, mate. He was the one who put him in and me stupidly didn't. So, yeah, I'll let Nathan take that one.
Passed over then, Nathan. What you got for us?
I remember Didsey, they call him, don't they? Notts County.
Didsey, yeah.
I when I went as an away fan watching Wrexham, obviously we're in the same league as Notts County last season. I was expecting so much. I thought he's going to be right up there, golden boot. And I don't know what it was. It just didn't really click for him last season. Maybe it was change of manager and trying to just find his way. He was playing a little bit deeper as well. Was playing kind of bit off the striker, a bit out wide, and wasn't really. I didn't think playing to his strengths at the age he is now. You saw at the weekend that he was just in his element. You know, he got so much space. He was the furthest forward. And the finishes as well are just absolutely sublime. Now, I look like a genius because I captained him. I was going to give it to Jody Jones, and I think if Jody Jones had played, I'd have stuck with him rather than McGoldrick. But, you know, you did see that he's starting to put the team on his back a bit more now. You have five games, 4 goals. I know there's a brace or 2 in there. But, you know, full of confidence. And I think this year is probably the year where he'll be right up there. You know, you've lost Stockport. You've lost Wrexham. So in terms of the goal scoring stakes, Doncaster are going to be right up there, Gillingham having a go. But individually, I think McGoldrick's got every chance of that golden boot.
And just to add on, I suppose someone that we've spoken about quite a bit on the show, Jay, and not only on this show, our Millwall show, obviously, losing Langstaff. You'd think, Nathan, that with Langstaff moving on to us, that naturally McGoldrick will just pick up that sort of focal point up top for him this year.
Yeah, I mean, very different type of striker, and I actually want to watch a lot more of Langstaff if I can for Millwall, because, you know, real penalty box poacher, and the criticism was that he just didn't turn up when he needed to do a lot more to work for the goals. That was a big criticism, especially when he played against Wrexham and he was nowhere to be found. Says more about us, I think that. But McGoldrick, yeah, I mean, they need goals, and I actually think Notts County really want to be right up there. It's an open league this year, probably more open than it has been in recent years. Doncaster, as I said, are probably the favourites in my eyes, but, you know, Notts County got to be looking at those top 3 spots, going, if we can get McGoldrick firing like he has much higher up the pyramid. You know, and it's hard to replace Langstaff. I get that, but they've got Jatta, they've got Jody Jones. They've still managed to keep him. Got people like Dan Crowley, who I think is a very good fantasy pick for the longer term. I know he didn't play at the weekend, but he's very, very creative. Will get goals, will get assists. And you know, they've lost other pieces like Aaron Nemann's now gone to MK Dons. You know, Jacob Badeau, I think, got the assist for McGoldrick. So the way they play under Maynard, I know it's got criticised, but they do get a lot of players that have output. So if I was looking at fantasy, I would always every week have a look at Notts County, maybe check the team news, because they're a really intriguing team that they might concede 3, but they'll probably score 4. So from a fantasy perspective, your forward players, that is good news.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And they look like a team that is very top heavy. As you just said, you know, they've got players in midfield that can break forward, like Crowley, like Jatta in attack, and Jody Jones, who set the record for assists last season in ultimately a pretty poor season, really. It ended up for Notts County. So I fully expect, like you said, them to be sort of the Peterborough of League Two, the team that will concede 3 or 4, but go and score 4 or 5. And, you know, credit to them, because it makes for exciting football. And as you said, Notts County are a team that people are going to look at for goals, assists, and just for exciting football when it comes to fantasy football. So that has been the Game Week 5 review. It was better for some of us than others. Let us know your picks. Let us know your teams, how you got on. And we'll move on to the top performer now. So we'll have a look who's actually the best. Was it you, Nathan? Because you got 80 plus points nearly in the 90s, but it wasn't. As you can see there, running down the wing, Yuki, managed by M. Slater, picked up 99 points in Game Week 5 and did what most people did, saw the news that we tweeted out. I'd like to say. David McGoldrick comes in, captained him as well, 28 points. You've got Dimitri at the back again, 16 points. Okonkwo I tweeted out a player to watch, or the pod tweeted out a player to watch, Okonkwo. 5 games, he's kept 4 clean sheets. He's been fantastic goalkeeper. 35 points in total. He's picked up and is the leading goalkeeper in the entire fantasy EFL. Marriott with a vice captain, picked up 7 and won on his picks. Wrexham and Notts County, as you said, two teams that probably, up until people have used their 5 picks, people are going to pick every week.
Yeah, I'm looking at that team now. Arthur Okonkwo in goal. I mean, great pick. He's such a big signing for us, and he's one of those. I know you can change. One of the beauties of EFL fantasy football is you can change the team every week and wipe the slate clean. But Arthur Okonkwo pretty steady as a pick, and you've got no limits on players you can pick. So if you're ever struggling for a goalkeeper, I don't think Arthur Okonkwo is too bad to fall back on if you're a League One aficionado. Rather than maybe Championship or League Two. I mean, Dimitri's just, he's one of those players that just seems to be so key for Crewe. And yeah, McGoldrick, that was the key. I mean, my team's actually not too similar. I think I finished 4th in the league. So M. Slater, A. Ram, and J. English, and me. So, I don't mind. I'll take that all day of the week. Wrexham and Notts County were clearly the picks for the teams. McGoldrick you needed as your captain. I think Jack Marriott was a very popular pick. I'd love to know what the kind of game week selection he was, but I mean, if you look at the top 4 players, I think they've all got David McGoldrick and Davis Keeler-Dunn as well. Shout out to him, scoring for Barnsley, 10 points. Is one to watch. I think now he's shook off the kind of rust of moving away from Mansfield.
No, absolutely, and Jack Marriott was 4.8% selected in all the fantasy teams. So Ben, I mean, looking at that. Interesting segment, because a lot of people are picking Dimitri, a lot of people are picking the likes of Payne and Phillips, and Okonkwo, as Nathan Wright said, having the season that he's having. Does this change the way that transfers are going to be looked at in the EFL now? Do you think that teams are going to be looking at this and as an avenue for checking performance? Because, you get a lot of stats there, you get their overall performance, you get their stats week in, week out, and at the end of the season you'll have a whole library list of what they've done, and how they ended up and where they stood against other players in their respective positions. Do you think players like Dimitri could be on the move purely based on fantasy football, not just scouting behind closed doors that we don't see?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I think it's only going to strengthen the use of data and analytics in recruitment, right? We're already seeing a huge spike in that. Teams now not only investing in sort of recruitment teams in terms of scouts or directors of football, whatever it might be, but every club now will have recruitment analysts and performance analysts that play a part. So yeah, it's only going to strengthen transfer business, I guess. Mickey Dimitri, someone that we highlighted at the beginning of the year as players to watch, players to get in. I can't believe I picked him out as a player to watch, and I've only just put him in as of game week 5, which is typical, isn't it? But yeah, look, as I say, I think in terms of stats and data, it's only going to strengthen any sort of recruitment business that teams look to do. I think the thing that might hold Dimitri back is obviously his age. He's 34, right? So will a League One or League Two Championship side take a punt on him? Maybe not now, but look, can't argue the numbers that he's putting up at the minute.
No, absolutely, and it will help those players that are aging that may get overlooked, as you just said. If they're putting in performances like that week in, week out, and they finish the season that strongly, someone to take a punt. Why not? Why wouldn't you? If they're still playing at a high level. So yeah, no, I totally agree. And so yeah, no, congratulations to running down the wing, Yuki. 99 points, led the EFL Fantasy Show league table with the top points scored in game week 5. So congratulations, well done. Let's see if you could back it up in game week 6. And we'll take a look at the league table now from 1 to 15. I'll run through it quickly. So we've got Ian Inevitable sitting in first place, moved up to 1, Take It Eze off the top spot, who drops down into second. Waymaker FC, EFL Tourists, they move up 2 spaces and go into 3rd and 4th respectively, with JPFC dropping out of the top 4 into 5th. Our very own Greensy's Lions, Mr. Ben Green, you've moved up the table yet again for another week and find yourself in what would be the
creeping up,
places.
mate. I'm creeping up.
Creeping up into 6th spot now on 296 points, only 1 point behind 5th place JPFC. In for a shock, who was sitting top of the league for quite a while. He's now in free fall as it looks, who finds himself out of the top 6 down in the 7th, with EFL Fantasy Josh moving up to 8th, and Poseidon, who led the league for seemed like eternity, even though it's only been 5 weeks, has dropped out of the top 8 into 9th, with Josh Slewitt moving up, the Elf Army moving down, running down the wing. UK, as we just pointed out, moved up to 12th with that massive 99-point haul. And Nathan Salt, with a pinch of salt, up into 13th, who breaks the top 15. I believe not for the first time this season, but as you're the guest of the show, it's more highlighted. So well done for that in the top 13 with your points haul this week. That was very, very good. And FPL Rafiki and Les Herbries, who is a mainstay at 15th and hasn't moved, on 279 points. Not a lot of points separating 13th to 8th, only 5 points is the difference. So get them picks in, make sure you're shrewd with your picks, because every point matters. And that has been your Fantasy EFL show league table up to date for game week 5, which now turns our attention to game week 6. And Ben, we'll come to your team first for your 6. You stuck with the same formation, a 2-2-2. It's worked for you. You said last week it works for you. You've kept it. Talk us through your picks. Some mainstays in there, but some changes.
Yeah, I've made it quite a few changes this week, actually. And whilst we were just talking then, I'm actually going to make another one at some point. But yeah, look, I've put Palmer in. Alex Palmer from West Brom's going in this week. I know Pompey have been quite free scoring, but I'd be amazed if they are not massively outscoring their XG. I know some people don't believe in XG and all that sort of thing, but I'd be amazed if they're not outperforming it in terms of goals actually scored. Really like West Brom. I've gone with them as a team pick, so I've gone with Alex Palmer in goal. Left Mickey Demetriou in. I think my player to come out is going to be Alex Mitchell. We spoke about Charlton already. I think you've got to try and get your wing backs in, haven't you? Or certainly at least offensive defenders, if that makes any sense. I'm going to take Mitchell out. I'm just not confident with Charlton at the minute, although I still do think they might make the top 6 this year, but I think he's going to come out. Molyneux staying in. I've gone with Keller Dunn, again, one of the players I highlighted at the beginning of the year. Even more so now he's got his move to Barnsley. I really like Barnsley. The play style there will suit him. So he's gone in. I've put him in as vice-captain this week. I've also put in Laurent Tolaj, who had a really good season with Aldershot. Obviously, he's gone to Port Vale now, picked up and signed on a 3-year deal, started to pick up in terms of goals in League 2. And I've actually captained Billy Sharp this week, who's another late change to my team. He's one of those players that we all love to hate, isn't he, Billy Sharp? And we'd all probably love him in our team. And again, we can't argue with the start he's had for Donny. He's had 3 goals and an assist in 5 games. And a couple of key passes, and I think he's had 4 or 5 shots on targets when I checked the stats earlier. So, yeah, I've gone with Billy Sharp as my captain this week, mate.
Yeah, and Billy Sharp's one of them, as we spoke about, like David McGoldrick, someone that you could just plug him up there and he'll score goals. He's a natural finisher, proven goal scorer, fantastic goal scorer, great work rate, and no problems with him doing it at any level, in my opinion. Yeah, really like the picks, and there's a couple of players there that we will touch on, not to give too much away. But Nathan, thoughts on that? Thoughts on Ben's team going with a 2-2-2 again? That's clearly worked for him.
I like it. I just think,
don't say but, Nathan. There's a but.
Only one of those players is playing at home. Now, that's obviously, I think it's a risk to back every player that's playing away from home, just because home advantage does count. I believe in the EFL. There are ones there that again, Accrington fans won't like me for saying it, but I would expect Crewe to beat Accrington, and you would probably expect Doncaster to beat Harrogate, but that is the early game of the weekend, isn't it? Is that Thursday night? I feel like
never bet on the early game.
I always feel a bit wary about that. Under the lights, Harrogate's. Wrexham have played there before. It's a nightmare place to go. Doncaster, as I said, I still think they'll be right up there, and they might win that game. But only one player at home, and even the 2 game picks, both of those are away, right? It's a gamble, Ben. It's a gamble, but you got to take gambles in this game. You got to take gambles in this game.
And you know what, Nathan? It was something that wasn't lost on me, but I really struggled when going through even the teams to pick at home. I thought they were tight games. I looked through the Championship, all the teams that I kind of follow if I want to pick for one of the 2. Same with League One. They were all in sort of tight games. So I thought do you know what? I'm just going to stick with teams that I fancy that could win. I know they're playing away, but yeah, it wasn't lost on me. So yeah, we'll see how we get on. I might. Now you said that, with my spare defender that I'm after taking Alex Mitchell out, I'm going to have to pick someone who's playing at home just for Nathan.
I was just checking mine. I was going to check just before you said that, Jay. I was just checking mine and just to say, oh God, I've just read the right out to Ben about away. What have I picked? What have I picked? And then I was going to say if I picked all away, but no, I haven't. It's all good. My point.
That's always the way. Well, look, I totally agree with your segment, and it's an interesting point to make about playing away from home, because your two teams that you pick, if they get an away win as well, it's extra points on the board. So you have to look at it like that. So no, I like the picks, Ben. You stay true to your 2-2-2. Which, talking nations, we're going to take a look at my team now. And due to my performances, I have bit the bullet and I've looked at other teams and I've done a bit of self-reflection. I've looked in the mirror. I've looked at what's gone wrong, what's gone right. And I've looked at other teams and I've looked out the window at the rain and the music's coming down. I thought, what do I need to do to get better? Well, I've changed it up. I've gone with a 2-2-2. And I've gone with the two most prolific point receivers in the Championship for forwards, and that is Madger at West Brom and our very own Millwall's Duncan Watmore, who's been on absolute fire this season. The 38 points leads the Championship for strikers, as does Josh Madger. He's been still waiting for the light to turn off. Doesn't seem to be happening. It's a risky game, Millwall against Luton, but Millwall at home, I back Millwall against anybody. And I've gone for O'Neill of Sunderland. They play against Plymouth. I don't rate Plymouth. Plymouth under Wayne Rooney, I have no time for. And Sunderland are performing like a team.
How you think, mate?
Yeah, it's exactly. Well, that's what we have to do. And I'm going to say how I think now. And I think Sunderland at the moment are probably the best team in the Championship. I think they're playing phenomenal football. They're free scoring. They've got some real good young talent there. And O'Neill is a big part of that team. And I've gone with Dimitri as my vice captain, just because I looked at the league table. I looked at the stats. I second, Nathan, your point on Ackridge and Stanley and on Dimitri. So that's why he's in there as my vice captain. Clark, who plays against Preston North End, again, really like him, really solid defender, picked up a lot of points, and I've captained Molyneux for reasons that we don't need to talk about. And my teams are the same. They both play away from home, but two teams I expect to fully come out the blocks early, come out the blocks with a lot of goals and really put these games to bed. I've gone with players that so far have got a lot of points, have played very, very well, and are in form. If you're going to get yourself out of a rut, that's what you have to do. You need to put the analytics down. You need to go with what's working, and that's what I've done. So I'll come to you first, Ben. Ben, thoughts? I've completely changed it up.
Well, yeah, change of formation, mate. Obviously, we've spoken about that for the last couple of weeks, so I'm pleased you've gone back to the 2-2-2. Very Championship heavy. And I would say my only concern would be, have you missed the boat in terms of the points that these players have already got? Now, I'm going to pick someone out here from our team, and Duncan Watmore. If he carries on the form like he's going, he's going to win the Ballon d'Or, so it can't happen. So that's my only concern. Madger, yeah, look, I expect West Brom to beat Pompey, as we said, so yeah, don't mind that pick at all. You're quite right in what you said about Sunderland, mate. They're flying at the minute, aren't they? So yeah, that would be my only two things, would be the Championship heavy and the players have already got the points on the board when you're trying to claw some back.
Yeah, I mean, but when the going gets tough, you just have to look at what's in front of you, and that's what I've done. And Duncan Watmore might not win the Ballon d'Or, but he may have another good week. He shows no sign of letting up. Nathan, it is very Championship heavy. I know that might not be your forte, but thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Duncan Watmore. I mean, if ever in doubt, at least pick your team, because then you can go down and say, well, I like the lad anyway. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can understand that. I actually think I would be backing Millwall to beat Luton. What I am intrigued by, maybe in the coming weeks, is what Victor Moses will look like for Luton, because clearly a player there that's it's far too good for the Championship. But he has been previously. What iteration of Victor Moses are you getting? How would he fit in? Because he could be absolutely dynamite, couldn't he, for Luton and for
probably
fantasy
not the
picks.
Best game to start his Championship career away at Millwall, but
he's probably on my list for maybe the next 3-4 weeks, just see how he beds in, and then he's one that I'm looking at. Watmore I like, Madger I like, Although Madge is one of them where I got a little bit carried away maybe after his hat trick, and then you go chasing the points that they've already got. I did
Absolutely.
that with is it the lad Kayembe at Watford? I ended up chasing those points after. Yeah, so that was a mistake. Dimitri, I think, is a good pick. Again, Luke 09 I really like. I'd expect Sunderland to beat Plymouth. Sunderland just look class apart at the minute. Luke 09 really good player. And two Lukes in the midfield, yeah, both scored a lot of points. Patterson in goal, again, you're backing Sunderland to win. Plymouth's goal threat outside of Morgan Whittaker, I'm not super fond of. And Preston, I don't know what team's going to turn up. I don't know what manager's going to turn up with them anymore. I'd assume it'll still be Heckingbottom, but you never know with them lots. So, yeah, I like it. I like that team. It's not bad.
No, exactly. And you got to look at, I agree with your sentiment on Plymouth. I mean, Morgan Whittaker, I think, is an outstanding player. He's scored a fantastic goal away at QPR. Can pop up in them positions deep in the 10, out wide, or in that 9 in the box. But I just don't feel tactically Plymouth, outside of some of the players they have, I just don't feel tactically they're prepared to go to Sunderland and get anything from the game. I don't think they're prepared to go anywhere away in the Championship and get anything in a game. They're a team for me that are really going to struggle. So yeah, no, I'm pretty happy. I've gone with surefire. What's happened so far? The best predictor of future behaviour is past behaviour. That's what I've looked at, past behaviour. That's what I've gone with. It might well and truly bite me on the arse, to which I will have to just quit fantasy football altogether at the end of the season. But that's what I've gone with. I've got to do something drastic. Times get tough, and that's what managers do, and that's what I've done. But we'll take a look at your picks now.
Nice.
Again, 2-2-2. You've gone with that. Reading and Mansfield to win, two teams we haven't spoke about yet, and a couple of players we haven't spoke about yet, although Poku, Keylor Dunn, a couple of players that we have had in our pre-season player to watch segment. So talk to us through them.
Yeah, so 2-2-2 I think is just the formation to stick with. I think that's the best balance for points, in my opinion. Will Mannion, I mean, I've got no time for Shrewsbury. I know Charlton have been up and down, but Shrewsbury are just absolutely crap. So backing against them is pretty easy. Hopefully Mannion gets a clean sheet. Ethan Ampadu, I think, is brilliant for Leeds. And Burnley, I'm just not sure. When they started the season, they went to Luton and ripped Luton to shreds. I thought, wow, they're just going to march straight back up to the Premier League. But, especially in my day job as a reporter here, a lot of infighting there and things that are not quite clicking. And I would expect Leeds to beat Burnley at home. Whether that involves a clean sheet, I don't know. But fingers crossed. And always back the Welsh lads non-stop. Belongo, again, I've not really been convinced by Wigan. There was a lot of talk about them in pre-season and how Maloney's going to get them into this top 6 chase. Bristol Rovers have been okay, but again, at home, I think Belongo's been a standout and does offer some level of attacking threat. So that is the change. I could have gone with Dimitri again. I do like Dimitri as a pick for both you lads, but it's one of them where normally after such a big points haul, there is usually a slight drop off. And just to keep it interesting for me, I just wanted to change it. So don't hate the Dimitri pick at all, but I've gone with Belongo. Keeler done away at Stevenage, but again, I think he's such a fabulous player and just joined a new club, will want to make an impression. Poku's had a quiet few weeks, was really quiet against Wrexham. Lincoln are a good side, and going to London Road, that will be tricky. But again, I think Peterborough need teams that will come onto them a little bit. Wrexham did sit off and absorb the pressure and then spring on the counter. So I think Lincoln will have a go. That should leave for an open game. I'm expecting Peterborough to win that, maybe in a high-scoring game, 3-2, 3-1, something like that. Kyle Wootton, I think, is actually underrated. Louis Barry, I've had for quite a few weeks, and he's been my captain a couple of those weeks. Very good player. But Crawley is a grueling place to go under Scott Lindsay. They are efficient and tough to beat, even when they rip up the squad and change it. Kyle Wootton has been good for Stockport this season, been rewarded with a new contract, like his chances of scoring. And Kelvin Ehibati, however we say his name, really impressed me in that opening game against Birmingham, scored. Leighton Orient, any team that loses 3-0 to Shrewsbury should be sounding the alarm, hitting every red button in sight, because that's a disaster. So back in Reading, and so I went with Reading striker.
Yeah, look, and I agree. And Reading is a team that's really surprised me because of all the troubles that they've had. Losing Femi Aziz to Millwall, the off-the-field issues where they've had trouble with signings. Not really anyone behind the scenes to sign the checks, if you will, to say yes or no. So really, surprised with Reading. Poku, again, is someone that Ben alluded to at the pre-season as a player to watch. Had a really good week one week, and he goes missing against Lincoln, at home. Lincoln manager's up for manager of the month this month, so he's going to want to sign off with him, especially a team like Peterborough free scoring. So that's got all the makings to be a real good game this week. And Belongo, I think, has been Bristol's best player. I've had him a few times. Really, really good, solid defender. Really good at getting forward. I really, really like him. So, yeah, really like your picks there. That's got the recipe to pull you out and give you another good points haul. Ben, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the midfield, love them 2 picks, Nathan. As I've said, one's obviously on my side. I've been trying to get Poku in. I obviously missed out the week that he scored his 2 goals. But yeah, I will be getting him in at some point and certainly keep an eye on him. The Leeds-Burnley one, for me, I was looking at that, and it's just, again, you kind of touched the point there, Nathan, but I just don't know what that result's going to look like. Burnley's transfer business as well has been a lot. Does it seem like a typical year one parachute team, chuck as much as we can at it to obviously try and get back up as quickly as possible? A little bit like that, I think. So, yeah, I'm steering clear of Burnley players, really. I do think they'll be up there, but steering clear just because I don't know who's going to play too much. Your 2 picks, Mansfield were one I was looking at. I actually have gone with your thought process. They're an early kickoff, aren't they? I think they're at 12:30, even though I've gone even earlier with the Donny
True.
pick. But yeah, we've spoken about Reading a couple of times, haven't we, Jay? Again, they're a team I'm going to, I think, let win, and they're not going to interest me, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I'm just going to let them do their thing this year. But yeah, pretty solid, mate. You're going to be hoping for another 80+ point week and start climbing the table.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And look, like you said, Jay, you've got to. Some say it's early, but you've got to kind of have a bit of strategy, especially on the team picks. I've gone for 2 complete differentials. Haven't used Reading. Haven't used because especially having been in League Two, I obviously know some of those teams. And I've gone with 2 League One teams this week, but it's really for me the Championship which I'm overlooking. It's going to get to a point where I am trying to keep in touch with that, because it's easy just to go Wrexham and Stockport and those kind of teams. Maybe Doncaster, I've used a few times. So I've gone for 2 completely new teams for me: Reading, and a big fan of Sellers, and Mansfield. Clough's very good, and Cambridge again. I predicted them to go down, so you may as well just fall on the sword at this point. And Field Mill's tricky place to go at the best of times.
No, absolutely, and it's strange that we're only 6 weeks in, or on the eve of being 6 weeks into the season, we're already writing teams off. But that's football. That's the EFL. You need to pick up points early, and it's going to be no different in fantasy football as well. If you don't pick up them points early and see yourself at the top, it's an awfully hard hill to climb, because people pick the same players. If players are on form, you see a lot of similar teams. It's very hard to find them gems, but that's what we try and do with our next segment, is we try and find players that may not be making your team, or they may make your team, but players that may have gone under the radar, some low selected percentage players that could help you out this week. So Ben, why don't you take us through some of your players to watch this week that people should be looking out for?
Absolutely, mate. So the only thing is, I'd say we have spoken about a couple of them, haven't we? So if we start in League Two, I mean, I've gone with one of these in my team this week, and I've put him in. That's Laurent Tolodge. As I said, he was really good for Aldershot. I think a shrewd bit of business for Port Vale. I didn't put him in my players to watch for the season, but he was kind of on my next level of list if I could add an additional couple to pick. Scored last week, as I said. He's already got 3 assists in 3 appearances as well this season. So yeah, he's percentage-wise, 0.1 of people have selected him. So he's going under the radar at the minute. As I say, he got his first goal last week for the club. Fully expecting him to bang a few more in for Port Vale this season. And hopefully, with me putting him in this week, he's the first of my ones to watch. And as I say, I put him in this week, so fingers crossed he can continue that scoring form.
No, absolutely. And look, picked up a total of 21 points with 15 points in the last game week. And he averages 7 points a week. So should be someone that people should be looking at. And as you said, 0.1% selected, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to be different, if you want to get that pick in, you don't want to pick your Alfie Mays, you don't want to pick your Madgers and people like that. And you're looking for that point difference in your league, as we just spoke about. Have a look at Laurent Tolodge. What you got for us for League One?
Someone that Nathan spoke about, and we've both got him in our team, is Davis Keller-Dunn. Again, just really like him from Barnsley. I think, again, a great bit of business picking him up. Obviously, the numbers he put up last year for Mansfield were just, excellent. I actually thought he might have got a championship move off the back of that. Still a decent enough age to make that move. But yeah, someone, as I say, did he get his first goal again for the club last week. So yeah, expecting him to kind of hit a bit of a rich vein of form now. Yeah, I think creative-wise from the midfield, you're going to get goals and assists from him. So, yeah, I think he's someone you've really got to look to get into your team if you can. Again, only 1.6% of people selected. So, if you're getting him in, you might have a bit of an advantage over the rest of the field there. Nathan, anything to add on Keller Dunn?
No, just a fabulous player. I mean, formerly of Wrexham. Wrexham had him, and then we went into COVID, and we didn't have the money to get him at the time. Dean Keats, I get on very well with former manager. He said we were desperate to keep Kayla Dunn and couldn't afford to do so. Obviously, different world now for Wrexham. That's not necessarily the issue. But yeah, he's flourished. And I know Mansfield fans are absolutely gutted to lose him to another team in League One. But Barnsley have got ambitions to be right up there. And, especially with Luca Connell sort of playing a little bit deeper role, he's got that license to play. And great finish at the weekend. And I expect plenty more goals to come for him.
Absolutely. And just whilst we're on that, so I didn't know he actually played for Wrexham. Was there an element of maybe trying to get him, knowing that he'd be moving on this summer?
I think maybe there was some. I don't know how much I can say. I think there were some inquiries a little bit in terms of but it's very tricky, and you've got to understand that we've got Elliot Lee in that same position, and Elliot Lee's not going to be dropping to the bench anytime soon. We've just signed Josh Adam, released by City, to kind of be a kind
Don't
of
go into too much detail, mate. We're going to go on to that in a sec.
Okay, well, no worries. But you know what I mean. But Kayla Dunn coming in, he's got to be a starting attacker. And from a fantasy point of view, you need to pick starters. So, not that Kayla Dunn was probably worried about his fantasy team this summer. Although I am obsessed with players having fantasy teams and who they pick and who they drop, and if they hate a player, do they pick them and all that sort of thing.
And do they pick themselves?
Exactly. They always say they don't, but they've got to. Some of them have got to. They must do. And captain themselves and all that sort of nonsense. I love all that. Yeah. But yeah, Keeler Dunn, I think we were looking, but we've got Elliot Lee, and how good is he for us?
Elliot Lee's a fantastic player. Keeler Dunn's a fantastic player. And Ben, as you rightly said, look, 1.6% selected, 10 points in the game week, total of 21, averages 5.3 points this season. But with his move to Barnsley, getting his feet under the table, as you rightly said, Ben, that should increase tenfold, in my opinion. Let's move on now to something that we probably know a little bit more about. Someone that I've not seen yet in anybody's team. Why don't you take us through your championship pick?
Mate, well, first of all, a team that have completely surprised me. I thought they were going to be rock bottom, and it's Mark Harris from Oxford. I just thought it was going to be a straight shootout between them and Plymouth, who was going to be worse, basically, this season to finish bottom. But yeah, Mark Harris is my pick for this week. You don't know what you're going to get from Stoke, but what you can say and what I have seen so far of Oxford is they're going to give it a go this year. They're not going to probably play the most free-flowing attacking football, but they're going to sit in and try and counter you. It's worked so far for them this year, right? They've been excellent. Mark Harris has been excellent. 4 goals in 4 appearances so far. And again, in terms of pick percentage, you're looking at 1.3%. So again, fairly low, or very low in terms of people that have actually picked him, probably for the reasons that I mentioned in terms of earlier on in the season and people thinking that Oxford are going to really, really struggle. Not to say that they might not fall down the league, and I'm sure Oxford fans won't thank me for saying this. I do expect him to drop off slightly, but look, he's absolutely flying. They're probably a team that really didn't want the international break to come. He's probably a player that didn't want it to come. And yeah, in terms of a percentage pick, someone to keep an eye on for this week.
No, absolutely. And in 4 appearances, he's got 4 goals, averages a key pass and a shot on target each game. So you're guaranteed to get some sort of goal mouth action out of him. And like you said, 1.3% selected, something that a player that not many people, if any, are looking at, wouldn't you say, Nathan?
I mean, ex-Wrexham as well. So he's come through the stable. We had him on loan. He was brilliant.
You are the
special guest.
He was. You could just see for us that he was like another level of. We had him on loan. You just sort of tell that this guy was going to be another level. And it's funny chatting to Bolton fans and winding them up, which is the easiest thing to do. But yeah, they were adamant that they were never going to lose to Oxford, and Oxford are just going to come straight back down. Ruben Rodriguez absolutely shredded them in that final at Wembley. 2 brilliant assists. But yeah, they're having a go. They kind of reminded me a bit of Luton, when Luton went to the Premier League, and just you can have a go, and you might lose 3-2 every week, but at least you're not trying to camp for a 1-0 and just it's a miserable and long season. I really like the picks. Yeah, I like the picks. I mean, the one for me, I don't know when I'll be next on, but the one I'm looking at as a bit of a sleeper pick at 0.1% ownership is Nathan Lowe at Walsall. So whether it's this week, Walsall playing Bradford, that is a tricky game. I think it's 6th v 5th. I think it's at Walsall. Yeah, they're at home. They're 6th. And Bradford, obviously tricky. But then I think they've got Salford City, who are okay, but not amazing. And then Colchester. Nathan Lowe, I think, one to watch. If you're really trying to get into differentials, especially if you've got a gap and you need to try and bridge, you need to take chances, you need to take gambles. If you're at the top, obviously try and play it a bit more safer. But if you need to try and build up some points, people like Nathan Lowe, people like a Michael Cheek at Bromley, I know that a lot of people that play the game, friends of mine who do it, they're very championship focused. Their teams in the championship, and that's what championship inside out. But there are gems in League Two, and League One as well. Tolaj is, I think, a great pick that Ben's gone with, and you just hope he hasn't used up all the points. Peterborough, I mean, is it what's his name? The other lad from Harrogate, Ado or whatever his name is. I can't remember now.
Yeah. Udo.
Yeah. So, and again, he's another one that was really, really good against us. Was better than Poku and one to watch. Mothersill again for Peterborough, but yeah, Nathan Lowe is a kind of. Just keep an eye because his ownership is so low that pretty much in any mini league you're in, I doubt people are going to be picking him. But I think he scored a brace in the EFL Trophy recently. Scored again in the league.
Scored against Shelton, winning, I think.
Yeah, so he's scoring goals, and teams like Walsall are going to be right up there all season long. So don't sleep on League Two. There are a lot of points to be had there.
I don't want to wind Nathan up too much, but a good friend of mine is a Tranmere fan, and he saw them against Walsall, and he said they were a really good side. He thinks that Tranmere will be up there come into the season. He's also having watched Walsall just to kind of cement Nathan's opinion here, but yeah, he thinks they'll be right up there come into the season.
Yeah, I mean, Tranmere fans typically are pretty delusional, so that checks out. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, brilliant picks there, Jen. So just to remind you, ladies and gents, that's Lawrence Tolodge, that's Davis Keylor Dunn, that tongue twister he's got there, Mark Harris, and then our special guest pick of Nathan Lowe. So check them out, get them in your teams if you haven't. If you want to make a difference, them low percentage picks, them players that are sneaky good are getting sneaky points, and that could be the difference for your team in game week 6. And looking at game week 6, Ben, what are some fixtures that you're looking out for that probably are going to be the games of the week, or that you look to be the games of the week in the EFL this week?
Well, I think for me, mate, the most obvious one is the rivalry that probably everyone sits on one side on, right? Is the AFC Milton Keynes game. I won't even say the second part of their team, but look, it's a game I always look out for. I'm from pretty close to Wimbledon. I've got a bit of a soft spot for them if you can for another league side, just because of what they've gone through. So, look, a fixture to look out for a number of reasons is the AFC Milton Keynes one, certainly in League Two. It'd be interesting to see how that goes, and hopefully the actual Dons and the real Dons can, give them a good beating.
Yeah, we're very impartial here, should I say? But yeah, no, I think football fans. That's one of the fixtures outside of the top flight, outside of the Championship, that people do look at, myself included, and look at and go, that's a game that you should really want to watch. That's going to be very feisty, very atmospheric. So no, that's great. What have you got a fixture for us for League One?
Well, I did have one. I did have one for League One, but should we pass it over to Nathan and see what his pick will be, apart from the obvious?
Go on then. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go with the one game that you've picked, and then we'll see if Nathan matches it up. And then Nathan can give us his game of the week after, and we can keep that as what in League One. Nathan can give us his game.
Mine's probably very boring then for this reason, but I've gone with Northampton and Wickham, and only purely because I was looking through League One and I was trying to pick something, and I was struggling. And League One, I looked at Northampton, looked at Wickham. They're both on a 3-game unbeaten run. So I just went with that game. Nothing more to that.
The point. And before we come on to our Championship pick this week, what have you gone with then, Nathan? What would you have used as a game to watch this week in League One?
The fact they reacted to my picks there, looked like he's going to go.
Ben, what are you on about? Game of the week? There's only. What are you on about? Northampton Wickham? Stop it, man! You're lying to the people watching this. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't make sense.
I had to pick
you
something.
You don't even believe that. You don't even believe that. I mean, Monday night, Birmingham City against Wrexham is the standout game in the EFL this weekend. Forget League One, League Two, Northampton Wickham.
Well, do you know why I didn't say that? it's because for the last couple of weeks, I think I've picked the Wrexham game or the teams to watch have been Wrexham. So I'm trying to not make
trying to
this
be different.
Yeah, I'm trying to make this not a full-on Wrexham show because, I've picked it for the last few weeks, mate.
Fair enough. Well, look, Northampton, Wickham, I can't let that slide, I'm afraid. I mean, if you'd have said Peterborough, Lincoln, I do think that'll be a really high-scoring game, really interesting game. I like Lincoln, I like Peterborough. Pre-season predictions, I had Peterborough up in third. Maybe that's a little bit optimistic, but do like that. And I know it's only League One, but game I'm going to be keeping an eye on in League Two, Bromley against Notts County. Seen loads of them over the years. Seen them in the National League, seen them in League Two. Both know how to score lots of goals. Defensively, not so great. But yeah, League One, there's only one place your eyes should be. Monday night. Monday night football, it's that big time. So Birmingham Wrexham should be a cracker.
Have you even got Gene Neville and Carragher there? No,
I hope so. I hope there's a big touch screen and Jamie Carragher losing his mind over maybe a misplaced pass by Elliot Lee.
They'll have Ben up there. Ben will be up on the touch screen.
Northampton against Wickham, yeah, probably, yeah. Talking as
when that's 4-4 Saturday, Nathan, I'm coming straight for you.
Hey, 100%. I'll offer a public apology. You should come for me, and I'll offer a public apology if that's the case.
And if it's 0-0, you can still give me abuse.
Yeah. Northampton against Wickham, yeah, probably, yeah. Talking as
when that's 4-4 Saturday, Nathan, I'm coming straight for you.
Hey,
100%.
I'll offer
so look out for that. Look out for that interaction, ladies and gents, because that is something that we are going to be keeping our eye on now, because there is a few that have started with our League One pick. Ben, moving on then to finish up our game week 6 before we move on to our guest Q&A segment. What we really know more about, what you really know more about, definitely. Championship. What game do you think people should be looking at this week?
I've just given it the, we've picked Wrexham too many times. I've included them in my games to watch too many times and picked something different. And now I've gone with the most blatantly obvious game in the Championship that everyone's going to pick, which is obviously Leeds and Burnley. And I think just purely from a promotion standpoint, we've already mentioned Burnley. We think they're going to be up there. Leeds are just going to be up there, aren't they? If they don't win the league this year, they're just going to be absolutely gutted and they would have ultimately failed. I think even if they finish second, they'll view it as a failure. I think it's just an obvious pick in the Championship. A little shout out for, what was the other game I looked at? Watford and Coventry. Watford and Coventry was the other one that I thought was one to keep an eye on. Again, I've spoken about my love and admiration a little bit for Coventry over the years. I think they're a really good side. Watford have started better than expectations, having listened to quite a few of their podcasts after we played them first game of the season. They were sort of widely anticipating themselves going down this year. So, they've started really well. As I say, really like Coventry. That would be my sort of one to look out for as well, away from the main game.
No, absolutely. And you look at Leeds and you look at Burnley, two teams, as you said, expected to go up, spent some money, lost some players in the process, two new managers as well. Who is Tom Cleverley? What is he about? Is he going to be a good manager? Is he the next player to become a good manager, or is he going to fall off? He certainly has started in different fashion to probably what most people would expect his start to be. Most people, including ourselves, or myself anyway, tipped Watford to really struggle this season. Lost a lot of players. The turnover in management is ridiculous. It needs to stop. Cleverley's proving to be a good appointment so far, a shrewd appointment. And Scott Parker, Burnley come out the traps early on. Great result away at Luton Town, a team very much expected to do the same. Big game this weekend. They've got away at Millwall. Not really a place to go when you need to pick up a point sitting, second bottom in the league. So, Burnley have made some signings. Zian Fleming from Millwall for big money. I expect to see him this week as well. So, that is definitely a bigger game than we'd probably let on outside of rivalries or geographically.
His injuries magically disappeared.
Yeah, that you see that when players are about to move on, they suddenly have a hamstring problem, something that you can't see but can't be questioned at the same time, that can be passed off as truth with a limp. So, totally understand that. We understand that as football fans. We get it. We don't like it, but here we are. Well, chaps, thank you very, very much for that. We've covered game week 5. We've covered game week 6. We've had a very fiery debate over some fixtures. We've looked at some good players to watch, and we've set ourselves up for some Twitter interactions after, which is great.
Ooh.
Because we're not going to leave Nathan alone, and Nathan's certainly not going to leave us alone, or Ben anyway. But I'm just moderating. But no, that leads us to the end of the show, gents. Nathan, thank you very much for being with us. And we're now going to come on to what Wrexham fans are probably going to be more excited about, what they're going to want to listen to, and that is the Q&A with yourself and Ben, with all about Wrexham AFC. Ben, take it away.
I say Wrexham fans are probably looking forward to it. I think most football fans, mate, have been keeping a close eye on Wrexham over the last couple of years. So look, I'm certainly interested to hear more about it, Nathan. But look, mate, we'll start off with the transfer window. I know we started to go into it a little bit earlier on, but what were your general thoughts on the transfer window? Did you expect to do a lot of business? Were you allowed to do a lot of business as well? But yeah, talk to us about the transfer window that you had this year.
Yeah, the feeling was that. Yeah, the feeling was that we needed to make a lot of signings. We needed to make a lot of moves because we've gone up back to back. So we wanted. Obviously, you want to keep as many from the National League as you can, and we have actually used a lot of those that were with us in National League. But really, when the owners took over, or the chairman, as they like to be called, they don't really like to be called owners; they like to be called chairman. When they took over and came in, the idea was, let's build a squad for League One. Let's build a squad capable of League One. Let's get Elliot Lee in. Let's get Andy Cannon in. Let's get Paul Mullin in. Let's get Ollie Palmer in. All players that are still with us now. Let's get Owen O'Connell in. Then you add a James McLean in League Two. He's in for us. Yeah, Stephen
George
Fletcher.
Evans.
But George Evans. Yeah, great for us. But you need additional pieces. You need. So this summer we lost Ben Tozer, who was a club captain. We lost Luke Young. Others have fallen down the pecking order, the likes of Anthony Ford, James Jones. They've fallen down the ranks. So you needed to make changes. Arthur Okonkwo in goal was a huge signing. We had him on loan last season, but getting him on a permanent was massive, really.
And that was a free, right? Did I see that?
Yeah, a
right?
free. Yeah, so he left Arsenal. Left Arsenal, joined on a free. Yeah, and because they didn't offer him a contract, we didn't owe a fee. Now we're paying him, no doubt, a very chunky wage. And I think, while there were offers for him to probably go in as a number 2 in the Championship, I mean, I'm being biased here, but there's no greater spotlight right now in the EFL to show off your game than Wrexham, probably. I mean, outside the very, very top of the Championship, nobody gets headlines like Wrexham do in the EFL. So if you really want to get yourself out there and land this future big money move, he's only young, plays every week as a goalkeeper, he's going to be number 1, 4 clean sheets out of the first 5 games. He's playing. He looked brilliant. He made an absolute world-class save against Bolton in that game to get us the 0-0. You then look at other signings we've gone and made. We've gone and got Mo Fowle from West Brom, and he's had some loans, and he looks a project, quite raw, but physically very tall, 6'4", 6'5". Young age profile, doesn't count against that 22 squad cap. Gone and got Josh Adam, released by City. Again, he's only 19, 20. He's going to come in as kind of a playmaker, backing up Elliot Lee, Jordan Davis, one of our own. He's gone out on loan to Grimsby, and his contract expires at the end of the season. So, you're already looking a little bit further down the line. We broke our club record for Ollie Rathbone from Rotherham. So, in theory, we've weakened a league rival there and got one of their midfielders, kind of very combative. Trying to think who else we went and got. Dan Scarr from Plymouth. He went up with Plymouth in League One. Yeah. He hasn't really played yet. Lewis Brunt was brilliant for Mansfield last season. He can't get a look in at the moment because Max Cleworth is so good. Seb Revens come in, was Rotherham's Young Player of the Year last year. Come from Villa's Academy, so he's another brilliant pickup. George Dobson's been, I think he's been the best midfielder in League One so far this season. I just think he's been absolutely fabulous. And to keep George Evans out the side, or as my co-host on the podcast calls him, Gorgeous George, is no mean feat. So George Dobson, while he's not got the Gorgeous George title, he's very, very good. And he's just been so effective. He just screens the defence really well. So when you kind of look at those pieces, you think of Dobson, you think of Fowle, you think of Scarr, Ravan, Brunt. These are pieces that are future proof. Maybe not Dan Scarr so much, I think he's 29, but Lewis Brunt, early 20s, Revan, not even 21 yet, I don't think, or he's 21 now. Fowle's 21, Adams 19, 20. So there are a lot of pieces there that Wrexham are looking, thinking, but these are either sellable in future, because we're going to get to a point where we're not just going to get promoted every single year and end up in in this new Champions League group stage in the next 3 or 4 years, whatever it is. We
are football manager story, Nathan.
Exactly. So you are going to have to be able to sell players, and I think what you'd have noticed from the outset is a lot of these players are quite old. Wrexham are signing Stephen Fletcher, James McLean, Ollie Palmer, Elliot Lee to an extent, Paul Mullen. Like, they're not young. They're unlikely to have much resale value. But we were in win now mode, and I think now we are still in win now mode because we've got a lot of those players. But for the first time in the takeover era, we're kind of looking a little bit more to the future as well, which I think was shown in this window.
And backing off of that, you mentioned Dobson there. I watched him at the weekend, and looks like an awkward player. And I don't mean this as any disrespect to Dobson at all. You kind of look at him, and he looks a bit hunched over, and he looks his positionally looks within himself. He doesn't look like he's very flamboyant or he can move about very well. But then he darted across the pitch at about 25 mile an hour, made a crunching tackle, received a booking for it, and I thought that's a player that fans love to see. And he's, as you rightly said, he's made some waves. He's got himself in the team, and he's looking really, really like a solid pickup. Is there any position? I mean, you've labelled a lot of players there. You've had a lot of turnover. Is there any position that you think you could have strengthened, that you wish that if the transfer window was open now, you'd like to go after a certain position or player?
It's really tricky to say when you're top of the league. It's great flex to come on and say that. But I think the one thing that is a legitimate question mark, because I love the back three: Tom O'Connor, Owen O'Connell, Max Cleworth. I love that. You've got two great ball players there. Owen O'Connell solid, and if Dan Scarr ends up coming in again, he's solid as that central option. We've got enough wing backs to fill an entire 11, so not worried there. I just think up front, I know Ollie Palmer started well, I know Jack Marriott started well. Stephen Fletcher's a good option for the last 20. Paul Mullen's coming back to fitness, and got a lot of time for Paul Mullen. He's got 106 goals for Wrexham, so he's been a fabulous signing. And Mo Farr looks very rusty. He's going to take a bit of time to get up to speed and kind of grow into his body. You just think if it comes down to it, nip and tuck as the season goes on. I know we've got January, but you look at Birmingham with Alfie May. You look at some of these other teams with ready-made goal scorers, for the level. And I just wonder, when we hit a little bit of a rough patch, have we got that person we can hang our hat on that will score? We think we've got that in Paul Mullen, but he hasn't had a long resume. He hasn't got a lot on his resume for League One previously. So I just think if we were going to go out and make a splash, I thought we might have done, in fairness. I know we made that with the keeper, and that arguably is such a much more foundational piece for the years to come. But I do just think, what would it have been like if we'd have landed an Alfie May or someone that would just everyone else would have gone, wow, what a striker that is to add into this team.
And taking it back ever so slightly, mate, you did mention George Evans, or Gorgeous George, as he'll now be known. Talk to us about him, mate, because he was a player that when Millwall first signed him, you looked at him and he'd obviously come from Man City's youth set up, and he was a youth player at Man City, as I say, and then he'd obviously gone out on loan, and he'd been managed under Gary Rowett at Derby, and we picked him up, and I certainly didn't know a huge amount about him. He struggled to find a home with us and a position with us ultimately. How's he settled in at Wrexham? I know from what I've heard he'd done well last year, but yeah, just talk to us about George Evans.
Yeah, so again, the first thing you do when you sign a player is like, what's the reaction from the fan base that he's leaving? And so when we got George Dobson, Charlton fans were gutted, and obviously he had that move to Hungary that fell through. It was kind of mixed when George Evans comes in, because you know what some keyboard warriors are like. He's the worst player that's ever put on a pair of boots, apparently, and some people think he's brilliant. And so we saw some Millwall fans saying, I would have quite liked him to have stayed, really, he just didn't quite, and others saying, nah, he's not good enough for the level, not good enough for Championship. He played so often for us last season. He's so serene on the ball, and I get there is two divisions lower than what you guys were expecting, but his reading of the game, his composure on the ball, never looks frazzled, never looks ruffled. And at the lower levels, that is usually the difference between the good and great players. You can ruffle the feathers of players that they don't trust their ability. But when you come through the City Academy, you've had such a good ground and such a good football and education. The difficulty for him now, and also, I will say, Evans last season, Notts County away, stands out because he's slotted into the back three. And I do wonder whether he may end up being used there more than central midfield this season. It's tricky to say because Dobson's so good, and I just don't see him coming out anytime soon. And it seems to be a toss-up between one George and the other. So
he was better with us as a centre-half. That's for sure. Stepping out, definitely.
Yeah, so it seems like that's more of an option for him. I mean, look, it only takes a couple of injuries and suddenly, the team could look very different. But I do think fully fit and on form, the injury to Evans has come at a really bad time. Just because now Dobson's come in, immediately won the fans over. You've even got some fans talking about he'll have Player of the Year wrapped up in no time, 5 games into the season. But, clearly, like you say, that tackle, Jay, that you saw, there was another at Peterborough where it was a 70-30 ball in the air. He seems to run from nowhere, wins the header, takes the man out, doesn't give away a foul because he won the header, gets clattered, gets up, and the away end obviously just explodes. And those are the kind of players you really root for.
Things you love to see.
Yeah, and while that isn't really George Evans's game, it's not predicated on physicality. So, what Gorgeous George is great at is just it's very aesthetically pleasing. He reads the game really well, he passes really well. I just think maybe he doesn't offer you as much of a presence, maybe further forward than Dobson can. Dobson's such a terrier, and he's got a weird. I get what you mean, Jay. He's kind of got a strange gait about him when he's running. It kind of looks a bit awkward, looks a bit hunched. But Evans is very much just going to sit there and try and dictate. And I just think League One right now, Dobson is just a better option for us. So it'd be interesting to see how Evans gets back in there.
Interesting. Yeah, someone that I just kept an eye on, because I thought, as you said, as he dropped down the divisions, I thought he would definitely find a home, certainly with a team that was performing well, right? So, yeah, always like to see how he's getting on. Moving on to the season so far, mate, and I'll couple this with the season expectations. I mean, the season so far, do we even need to talk about it? It's just been unbelievable, right? But that probably goes into the second part of the question. What was the expectation for this season? Was it that you were going to be 4 clean sheets in 5 games, top of League One? Was that the expectation from the fan base, or was it a little bit more subdued?
Oh, we thought it was going to be a tough start. We thought on paper that was a really tough start to get because, Wickham got ambitions to be right up there and their fans were talking a good game. Bolton, they've done nothing but whine and say how great they are. And now Ian Everett's supposedly the worst manager ever. So that's very funny. And I always say on my podcast how crap Bolton actually are. But, who else have we then got? We've got Birmingham coming up. Shrewsbury we weren't too concerned by. But Peterborough, again, we thought that'd be a really, really tough game. And they didn't have a single shot on target against us. So, Arthur Okonkwo probably could have been there with a cigar in his mouth. It was that straightforward for him on the day. So, it's gone a lot better than we thought. I mean, myself and Rich on our pod was saying that really a pre-season expectation for us was top 10, top 9, maybe just on the outskirts of the playoffs. That would have been I think that would have been a good season for us. It may still end up like that. And I do think even with this start, top 10, having gone back to back, top 10 in League One, I think it's a really good foundational block to build upon. But I do think, and we'll know more after Monday night's game against Birmingham, if you get a result in that, I think you're kidding yourself. You're lying to yourself if you don't think playoffs are right there in play. And with every week that goes by, the more I'm looking at it going, I still think Birmingham will win the league because they'll have more. But I think that second, I think that second place is right there for about 6 or 7 teams. I think Huddersfield are looking at it. I think probably Charlton are looking at it. I think Barnsley are now probably looking at it. Wrexham, Stockport, Peterborough, Bolton. Yeah, there'll be 7 or 8 teams that genuinely believe that second place is up for grabs, and sure they'll be going for first place as well. But just think Birmingham will end up spending the money, and I'm big on Alfie May and Jay Stansfield. So yeah, the more weeks that pass, the more
Which
I think
is ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah, the more I think maybe I was a little bit too pessimistic really with my Wrexham pick. I just thought, coming up again, League One's another level. There's a lot of good teams, ex-Premier League teams, but we've acquitted ourselves immaculately so far, you have to say.
No, and you touched on, obviously, your expectation to be top 10, which is, I think, realistic for most teams that go up. I think that the first port of call is to get safe, reassess, go again, assert yourself in the division. It's weird that you see the 2 teams that come up in yourself, Stockport and Wrexham, doing really, really well. And is there a worry with that you have done so well? I mean, tell us about in-house expectations. Phil Parkinson's a very seasoned manager. I'm sure Ben will want to ask some questions about him in a moment. But does the club's expectation outside of the fans, because fans' expectations change all the time, does the club's expectation, does that change at all, or do they look at it as get to a certain amount of points? Although you're doing so well, do you change your approach? Do you start looking at the teams ahead and think we can actually do this? Because we've seen teams do that before and they falter and they they lose track of what they're actually trying to do in the first place. They throw game plans out the window. How does it work with Wrexham? Because you've gone back to back. You're obviously doing something right. And if you see blood in the water, you're like sharks. So does that change, or has it changed this early on, or is it keep doing what we're doing for now and reassess later?
Well, I was out in Vancouver for the preseason tour, and there was a Men in Blazers event. A few of the players were at, and they were asked, what's the kind of expectation? What are you thinking in the dressing room? And Ollie Palmer whispered back to back to back. So I firmly believe in-house they think they can go up again. I think they just believe they've built the squad. And it's not necessarily that they've got 1 to 11 the best players. And I'll be keen to go through and maybe do a combined 11, maybe on my own socials this week for Birmingham, just to see out of curiosity. But everybody knows their role so well, and Phil Parkinson's really created this a plug and play type system whereby, okay, Tom O'Connor can't play, but you just put in Lewis Brunt or Will Boyle can pop up with a goal. You can put Ollie Rathbone in if Andy Cannon can't play. And while it's not always exactly the same, it just works. Maybe you put Revan on the right, maybe you put Barnett in, maybe you play McLean, maybe you move McLean inside. There's a lot you can do with the group that he's built, and there's a lot of experience in there as well. You're talking ex-Premier League players in McLean and Fletcher, and people like Fletcher are just playing cameo roles. We've got so far, got to top of the league. I know it's early and we played a game extra, but top of the league without Paul Mullin starting a league game yet for us, which is should be scary for everyone else. All the teams that have played us so far aren't going to have played us with Paul Mullins. So, there's a lot to be optimistic. I actually think the fans have lesser expectations than the club. I think the club want to go for it because, and the reason I say that, the club know how precious momentum is. You saw, was it Salford City got 4 promotions in 5 years, and now they're stuck and their owners want to get external investment and maybe sell up or whatever that case may be. Once you lose momentum, it's very hard to get going again. And, it's while you have it, you have to ride the wave for as long as you can. We got sort of scolded by our listeners because we were sort of saying consolidate and, top 10 would be good and whatever. But people were saying you can do that in the Championship, and that'll just bring extra sponsors and, more scrutiny on the documentary and more people that want to invest and all that sort of thing. And they've got a point. If you can get to the Championship now, I'm sure Wrexham won't be turning their nose up at it. It's a very open League One. There are a lot of good teams. Wrexham are in a position where they can back the manager, they can back Parkinson, but so far we've done it with a lot of lads that were with us in the National League. So look, cohesiveness counts for a lot, partnerships on the pitch count for a lot, and we've got that in abundance.
And momentum, mate. I think the key thing there you mentioned, it takes the team a long way, right? And I think with I don't just mean on the pitch as well, just the whole Wrexham wave is just continuing, right? It's a tsunami at the minute. So goes on to probably the most important piece of the Wrexham puzzle. Just talk to us about your owners, mate. The change that's happened, the thoughts of the fans, or well, not the thoughts, I'm sure the love from the fans. Just talk to us about, the whole journey, and I say the recent expectations that they will have for the club, or the aspirations for the club as well.
Yeah, look, they are the best owners in sports, I would argue, and these guys.
I would argue a Millwall one there. But
look, these might look rose tinted, but they're normal lenses, lads. They're normal lenses. You think they're rose tinted specs, but they're. I would argue that they are the best owners in sports because they've what they've done for Wrexham. Now, Wrexham, I would back to the hill, is a storied club. Been in Europe, played Anderlecht, played Porto, played Roma. We have had great times before. So this idea that Wrexham, has only become relevant in the past few years is a load of old absolute nonsense. But people are going to say what they want to say.
You can swear, mate. It's fine.
It's all good, mate. I don't want to give people the satisfaction. I'll just keep it PG, mate. But Wrexham, it's a load of nonsense that this idea that Wrexham are some sort of plastic team. It's ridiculous. So they've seen that Wrexham is this sleeping giant. I know that's very cliche, but in Wrexham's case, I do believe it to be true. And, they did look at other teams like a Hartlepool. I think Macclesfield they looked at as well. Teams that are in these poorer areas, maybe mining towns previously, that they could try and uplift. And, I'm so glad they picked Wrexham. Fan base was the key reason why they picked Wrexham. And they've just, what they've done is they've just breathed new life back into, I can't call it a city, even though it has city status, back into the town. They've just... What they've done is just they've given everyone reason to believe again. We'd got to the point with a football club where you are turning up, but you're turning up just because that is your team and that is your love for the club. But you're turning up with, we've gone from maybe 98-point season finishing behind Fleetwood, Jamie Vardy's Fleetwood, and that left us scar for years and years. Then we got to the playoff final, lost to Newport, and that was an absolute nightmare. Grown men crying on Wembley Way. And, these took us years to recover from, and we never really managed to get back there playoffs and slipped bit by bit down the table, and transfer budget got less and less. And, these guys come in and, all right, so a handful of people were a little bit wary. Is it just a gimmick for a documentary? What is the goal? Like, why do they want to invest in Wrexham? They don't have any ties to Wrexham. What is the point of this whole thing? And they've come over, they've invested in the area, they've invested in the people, they've tried to give people business ventures, players, local, Wayne Jones from the Turf now, you have people doing bus tours, stopping off at the Turf, going in for a pint and then getting back on the bus and carrying on with the tour. So, it is just great for the town. I've got a lot of people, again, I'm biased, but a lot of people who have businesses in the town. It's never been better. It doesn't feel like it. It's just so good. It's a golden ticket now to go and watch Wrexham. And, even when you go around the town, Wrexham's situated in a place where you are going to have a lot of Liverpool fans. You are going to have, I guess less so nowadays, but you are going to have Everton fans. You are going to have Man United fans, City fans, and there is going to be Real Madrid shirts and Barca shirts. But you do see those Wrexham first, second and third kits on the kids, and that's important. And
I was about to say, mate, that's my next question. I was just going to say, has it brought that new wave of Wrexham fans through?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, now that the more and look, you do get people and some of the old guard, and people might disagree with this, but it is true. There are some people that sort of grumble if they can't get a ticket as easy as they used to, but fan bases constantly need to grow and evolve. As nice as it is, because we say, oh yeah, I was stood in the rain at Ebbsfleet when we lost 3-0 under Andy Davis, and I don't wish those times back. I'd rather this now, where it's a nightmare to get a ticket. It's packed out every week. We've got a great home atmosphere. We've got one of the best home records in the EFL over the past few seasons. You've got kids dead, like buzzing to stand outside in the rain. Doesn't matter, come rain or shine, and meet players, get autographs. And I was sorting out at home recently, and I was a mascot in 2005 when we were last in League One. And I was flicking through the autographs I had then, and Dennis Lawrence and Ben Foster when we first had it. Priceless memory for me, that. And, I guess kids had kind of got when you're on the slide and it's just no one's really coming, and you lose interest. And so this is great. And the owners have done a huge part of that, but they know that the documentary, which has just won another load of Emmys, it's about the town, it's about the community. And I think it's a marriage made in heaven. They've just given us the spotlight. They've put a spotlight on our town, our city, and made us what they said they would, which is a global force. They wanted to make us a global force that gets to the Premier League. They've done one, and I wouldn't bet against in the next decade they can get us the other one.
And you mentioned it there. Sorry, Joe. One last one for me, man.
Go on, mate. Go ahead.
You obviously hear a lot of owners or new owners come in. I'm thinking Tom Brady right at Birmingham, and just the things he was spouting. I mean, they've clearly gone and spent money, but when the guys come in, Nathan, was the Premier League genuinely banded about? Was it like in 10 years we want to be in the Premier League, or 15 years? Was that sort of the goal? Was that the mindset that they had? Is it evolved now that they've obviously seen success in a short period of time? What was their vision for Wrexham when they first come in?
I remember going to they when they flew over, they did a press conference in the stand. I was lucky enough to be in that kind of open air press conference, and they said it then. Premier League is the goal, because why not? Because it is possible. And they were they were sort of appealing to American fans, is you don't get that in the NFL. There is no rise through the you don't get that in baseball. You're not going to go from the minor leagues to play the New York Yankees. It doesn't happen. You have a team. You're going to be rubbish one year and then draft the best player, and that's the system, and it changes. But if Wrexham can theoretically get to the Premier League, which is possible, Millwall could, touch wood, gents, I'm not going to say, could theoretically go to the National League. You got that freedom of movement.
Whoa.
I just said
we're going to end it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming.
But you know what I mean? But they were saying, just because it is possible, why would you not dream for that? They haven't come in to say, let's get Wrexham 15th in the Championship and make our home there, and that'll be good, and because where you are now. And look, the Championship is an absolute dream for Wrexham, because think where we've been for the last 15 years. That'd be, imagine being in the Championship, and I'll redeem myself here, and playing Millwall and playing Cardiff and playing Leeds and playing these teams that are just massive grounds and massive fan bases and all that. That's incredible. And think of the teams we have been playing over the years. You haven't on Waterloovilles, your Ebbsfleets, your Braintree Towns, and we've had to slum it out, with all due respect. Well, there's no respect to those teams, is there really? So I feel like you deserve it. But they just said, look, when we come in, they said, look, the Premier League is the aim here. They didn't put a time frame on it, Ben, in terms of 10, 15 years, because it's too hard to say at that point. We were in the National League. But they said, look, if we can get there, that's the aim. We're going to try and get there.
Yeah, and you can do a Luton, you can do a Brentford, you can do any of these clubs. It has been proven to have happened before, so why not again? But I just wanted to back off of that before Ben finishes up, and then I finish up with yourself. We've seen their documentaries, or most people have seen the documentaries. They would have seen what the ownership, what the ground, the atmosphere is like on camera, shall we say, for viewers. Have you seen them much in the stadium? What are they like when the cameras aren't there? Do they interact with the fans? What are they like with the players? Are they boisterous? Are they like fans? Are they screaming and hollering like you or I or Ben would do? Or are they quite reserved? Do they sit back? What are they like away from the cameras down at Wrexham?
No, they're not very reserved. They're constantly pacing up and down in the box they've got, and constantly nipping inside for a drink. It's just funny. It's I know the cameras have caught certain things. I've been fortunate that I've spoken to him a couple of times. I actually met Rob out in LA on the first preseason tour. Just bumped into him at the LA Galaxy game there, and he stopped for pictures and gave me a bear hug. He's only seen me on Zoom one time and in person, and just treated me like I couldn't believe it. Genuinely, and there was no sort of cameras filming that. It was just a genuine interaction. And just generally, he stops and signs autographs. He chats with people. They've made so many donations to fans to get them, help if they need. A fan with cerebral palsy needed a specially designed bathroom. They put money in for that. Jordan Davis and his girlfriend Kelsey, unfortunately had a stillbirth, and they donated to that. James Jones and if you've seen in the documentary, James Jones and his wife Chloe, they had a really real issue with the premature birth of their child, Jude, and they raised awareness of that in the documentary. Anthony Ford, Ryan Reynolds paid for a specialist brain tumor expert to see her private, when she was struggling to get seen, and stuff like that. A lot of that was away from the camera, especially the Ford thing. That really stuck with me, because that counts for way more than football. And Anthony Ford didn't play for a while, and when it all emerged that had happened, I think, Ryan Reynolds didn't do that for clout, or he did that because he really cares. And Rob McElhenney gave an interview this week where he said the hardest thing he's found being a football owner is that you have to say goodbye to players. And I think he takes it like a fan does. And much like me, he's got very good taste, because his favourite player was Luke Young, who was my favourite player as well. Captain of the team, been with us since the National League days, been with us pre-takeover, really earned that promotion. And he went in the summer, as did Ben Tozer, and I think Rob McElhenney, they're finding him, especially when they go in the dressing room and they give these emotional speeches and they're constantly bear hugging everyone and backslapping. They're so attached to the players. And I think for them, I hope they don't change, but I think with the high turn you see at the Championship and at Premier League level, the turnover is so high of players. They're constantly coming and going. It's very hard to get attached, because it just stings every time. So that's what they got to work on, I think.
Yeah, no, they seem like really, really nice people in front of the camera and off of the camera. They do come across as genuine, heartfelt people, and fair play to them, credit to them. Imagine picking Wrexham, and that's no disrespect to Wrexham at all, but yeah, fair play to them. They've pushed the boat out, and they're obviously doing something right. They haven't just jumped in and gone, oh, let's just buy a football club, for instance, like you see before. They're doing it the right way. They're investing, and they're clearly enjoying themselves. And Wrexham fans likewise are enjoying themselves. So, Ben, any further?
No, look, I think in a world of football, this is a general thought now, in a world of football where there's a lot of bad owners there, it is great to hear, genuinely, it is great to hear that the owners do care about clubs, towns, communities, and players. So, look, it might not be for everyone's taste. I'm sure, Nathan, you've had your fair amount of stick being a Wrexham fan. But yeah, look, it hopefully they do care as much as it seems. And as you've said there, Nathan, as I say, we've got an owner and a family that have certainly cared for our club. So, look, it's as I say, in a sport and an industry that there isn't a lot of that, and a lot of clubs are completely disconnected with their owners. It's genuinely nice to hear. And bringing it back more importantly to fantasy football, mate. You mentioned a lot of players earlier on, but we always do this little segment now. Tell us about a player that's not Paul Mullin or Gorgeous George, that someone's going to want to get in their fantasy team that plays for Wrexham. So give us 2 names that people should have from Wrexham in their teams.
I already said that. I think Arthur Okonkwo would be a really safe pick. If you do what my co-host does, Rich, and basically just forgets to change his team, I've already told him, just stick Okonkwo in, you'll be fine. He's going to be number 1 every week. We keep a damn load of clean sheets with the 3-5-2 formation. But I really do think this is going to be a big year for Ryan Barnett, our starting right wing back. The way he glides with the ball. I mean, the assist he got for Elliot Lee the other day, I had him in my team for the 89 points, as you saw early on. And again, he was a player that we just weren't sure what we were going to get. You know, Shrewsbury basically got rid of him, didn't think he was up to the standard for them in the league, went to Solihull, really ground out a career there, and then come to us, was really good for us, and has just gone from strength to strength. And I'm already this early on in the season thinking, like, what would he be like in the Championship, whether it's with us or with somebody else? But I do think if he continues at the rate he's going, Championship clubs have got to be looking at him. And I think, just with the way our system depends on wing backs getting forward, he is more of an attacking threat than James McLean is on the other side. And while Seb Revan, I think, will eventually come into the team, Barnett is too good to drop. He's been, for my money, almost man of the match every single game he's played. He's been phenomenal. And just think with the amount he gets forward, the driving runs, the crosses he makes, he's bound for double-digit assists. And while he might not get you goals as well, I think if you're looking for an outside pick, because I know people have been picking Paul Mullin every week knowing he's injured and not starting games. So I know people are maybe a little bit basic. But if you haven't been watching Wrexham at all, Ryan Barnett, honestly, he's a diamond.
Excellent. And to finish up, mate, the Q&A session, for any Wrexham fans there that have clearly living under a rock or just don't know anything about you, tell us about the pod, mate. Tell us where we can find you, and if any fans want to follow the Wrexham journey, tell us all about the show, mate.
Yeah, so the Rob Ryan Red podcast, if they've been living under, I mean, they might want to stay under the rock, to be honest. Don't have to listen to me every single week. But Rob Ryan Red, 189 episodes now, which is just great, isn't it? Do with a friend of mine, Rich, who I've known since university days. We've gone home and away for Wrexham for years and years and years. Like I said, mascot all the way back when we were back in League One, 2005. And I had a lot less hair then. Didn't have this big beard at the time either. So, it's just great. You can find us, Rob Ryan Red, on basically every platform. On Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Yeah, all the socials, Twitter, X, whatever we call it now. And on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So easy to find. Bit of a tongue twister, Rob Ryan Red. I like going on national radio and they can't quite say it and they sort of trip over and just give up after Rob and Ryan and just stop. So, but yeah, thanks very much for having me on, gents. I do appreciate it. And obviously, I'm sure you'll be coming on my show every week. I'm done well and I can brag about my fantasy football.
Yeah, we'll discuss that. But no, look, thank you again. Look, thanks so much for joining us. You was a podcast that we identified very early that we wanted to get on. We wanted to get your thoughts. We wanted to talk about Wrexham for all the reasons that you laid out, So we appreciate you coming and joining us on this journey. We're obviously a new podcast. Fantasy football has only started this year, so we're looking to progress and we want you to be a big part of that. And we hope that you'll join us again later on in the season and hopefully you're still singing the praises of some of the players and the league that you've been talking about. So no, from myself and from Ben, thank you very much for joining us. For you viewers, if you do like what we've done and you do like what Nathan's had to say about Wrexham, as you said, you can find him at Rob Ryan Red. You can find us at Fantasy EFL Show. Please like, share, subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't give us anything. We're doing it. We just like fantasy football just like you. So please drop a like. Please drop a share. Please subscribe. And with that, Ben, any final thoughts from yourself?
No, absolutely not. I just can't wait to come for Nathan when Northampton and Wickham is a 4-4 thriller.
Absolutely. And Nathan, I'll let you have the final word, mate. Any final words from yourself?
Yeah, no, look, bring on fantasy football. Be aware that is an early game week. If you like Rich, my co-host, he's always missing the early deadline. So don't be one of those people that misses the deadline. Early game week, Doncaster Harrogate. You've had enough weeks to get to iron out any mistakes now. So come on, you've listened to the lads, you listened to me a little bit as well. Get on the ball.
Yeah. And with that, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.